President Trump posted this saying Iran has taken some shots at unrelated nations with respect to the ship movement, Project Freedom, including a South Korean cargo ship. Perhaps it's time for South Korea to come and join the mission. We've shut down 7 small boats. Guys, this is significant because finally what we talked about is happening, because we were wondering at what point of this military operations we're going to see the small boats being attacked, because the small boats haven't been attacked like this, and we saw them being attacked in Venezuela very efficiently, so we know that was always on the table, right? And now this is happening. So we've shut down 7 small boats, or as they like to call them, fast boats. It's all they have left. Other than the South Korean ship, there has been at this moment no damage going through the strait. The Secretary of War Pete Hegseth and Chairman of the Joint Chief of Staff Dan Kane will have a news conference tomorrow morning. So that's going to be significant. Thank you for your attention to this matter. So that was big news that there were some attacks on a South Korean cargo ship. And so that's update number one, which is big. Update number two is that now finally these small boats, fast boats are being targeted. But the bigger update is that the UAE is under attack. The UAE is under attack, and this is official UAE account of the foreign minister, like, no, the Ministry of Defense account. You see the gray check mark. Okay, that means that it's an official government account. I should follow them. All right. So they said 4 cruise missiles launched from Iran were detected towards various areas across the country. That is big news, guys. This means that the chances of the UAE entering officially declaring war against the Islamic Republic has now gone way up. So we're gonna go from military operations of United States and Israel against the Islamic Republic to military operations of United States, Israel, and the UAE against the Islamic Republic potentially, right? So that is big news. So this is like an official end to the ceasefire, right? So 3 were successfully engaged over the country's territorial waters, while 1 fell in the sea. The Ministry of Defense affirmed that the sounds heard in different parts of the country are a result of air defense systems engaging threats. The ministry urged the public to obtain information from official sources and comply with all public safety procedures when warning messages are issued to the public. So that was big news. But then this post by Naftali Bennett also is big news. It still amazes me that we're like this, we're getting statements like this. Okay. I know the normalization of Israel ties between a relationship between Israel and UAE started 6 years ago with the Abrahamic Accord. But this statement here by Naftali Bennett still is pretty significant. Look at this. The United Arab Emirates, so Israel, Naftali Bennett from Israel is saying, the United Arab Emirates, our strategic ally, has just been attacked by Iran. This is, in effect, a declaration of the renewal of Iran's war against the allies of the United States and Israel across the region. This regional alliance is vital to our security and to the security of the moderate partners in the Middle East and the Gulf, okay, the Persian Gulf. Persian Gulf. Iran continues to try to intimidate the region and poses a threat to global security. We stand with our ally. We stand with our ally. Still, guys, this is the fact that we're living in a world where Israel is like, "Ah, don't you dare attack our ally, this UAE." I don't know. It's pretty interesting. I don't know. It's like I love to see it. I love to see it. So that was a big thing that happened, and then we also had this. So in a call with reporters just now, Admiral Brad Cooper of CENTCOM says Iran has opened fire on U.S. warships and commercial vessels today, but declines to say whether the ceasefire between the U.S. and Iran is over. U.S. forces returned fire and destroyed some Iranian small boats. And then we had some fake news that needed to be corrected. And then we had this over here. We have U.S. Central Command basically responding to some fake news. So the claim is Iranian state media claims that Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps hit a U.S. warship with two missiles. And then Central Command saying the truth is no U.S. Navy ships have been struck. U.S. forces are supporting Project Freedom and enforcing the naval blockade on Iranian ports. So Project Freedom, if you guys don't know, was the name of this new naval operations that President Trump just announced yesterday regarding trying to secure ships going through the Strait of Hormuz, right? And then we had this update. Hold on, let me just play this really quickly.
Project Freedom and the
Let's go here.
Trey just spoke with President Trump moments ago. He's live from Tel Aviv for us. Hello, Trey.
Sandra, good afternoon. I spoke with President Trump for 20 minutes about the situation with Iran. He talked about Project Freedom and the U.S. efforts to guide vessels through the Strait of Hormuz, issuing a new warning to the Iranian regime, saying if the Iranians try to target U.S. ships in this area, they will be, quote, blown off the face of the earth. Remember, this was a project implemented by the Americans overnight to assist the hundreds of vessels that are currently trapped in the Persian Gulf. We're talking about more than 20,000 sailors. And the president told Fox he's doing this for humanity. Some of these sailors were running out of food and supplies on these vessels due to the Iranian threats that are ongoing in this area. And again, the president saying that if U.S. ships in the region are targeted, the Iranians will be blown off the face of the earth. Now, I also asked President Trump about the possibility of negotiations with Iran succeeding. He said the Iranians are being far more malleable than they were being in the past, showing.
So this is very interesting because a lot of people think what's happening. The Islamic Republic is being flexible or not, because President Trump keeps suggesting that people within the Islamic Republic contacted him and they are agreed to open the Strait of Hormuz, and they have agreed to their what they're offering, even though it's not acceptable, seems to be a lot more closer to United States position. But then we see that the Islamic Republic, once ships trying to go through, they're attacking the ships, the South Korean ships, they're attacking the UAE. Again, this shows, I think, in my opinion, this shows how fragmented the Islamic Republic is. There are parts of the Islamic Republic who are trying to be a lot more flexible to President Trump, meet halfway, but the other parts of the Islamic Republic who are like, nope,
Flexibility given the U.S. pressure that continues as part of the American blockade of Iranian ports. President Trump called that blockade the greatest military maneuver in history. As it relates to the combat preparations that continue across the region, President Trump understands there are two paths here. The Iranians either make a good faith deal or ultimately combat operations could resume. And President Trump told Fox News that right now they have bases all over the world. There are American preparations underway. He said they're all stocked with equipment, and we can use all of that stuff. And if he needs it, he will use it. But the headline here, Sandra, the president issuing a new warning to the Iranian regime if they do fire on U.S. vessels in the Persian Gulf or near the Strait of Hormuz. And today we can report, according to CENTCOM Commander Admiral Brad Cooper, there were multiple attempts on American vessels and merchant ships in this region. And Cooper says that there were U.S. efforts to shoot down both missiles and drones in the Persian Gulf as these Iranian efforts to attack vessels in the region continue. Sandra?
All right, Trey, is it fair to say you got a sense of optimism as this continues from President Trump in that phone call?
Yeah, absolutely. The president.
So this is actually very interesting because there are two ways of looking at it. One is that President Trump is actually optimistic, and he doesn't. And let me know when you put twos in the chat. Let me know which one of these you agree with the most. Okay. So there is one perspective that suggests that President Trump doesn't really want to go back to military operations, and he's hoping that the blockade, along with Project Freedom, is just going to get the Islamic Republic to surrender. But there's another perspective that says that this is a trap, and President Trump just basically made it knew that the Islamic Republic would not be able to resist attacking the Project Freedom and the ships going through the Strait of Hormuz, which now puts the United States in a position that they're not continuing their military operation. They're now responding to the Islamic Republic's new aggression. And while at the same time announcing that the Islamic Republic is cooperating and they're flexible, continues to cause division with the Islamic Republic. So this way, he is going to go back to military operations, but it's going to look like a response to the Islamic Republic's aggression, given that he knew that they're going to attack anyways, instead of just continuing with what he had started earlier. While the messaging will also make the many people within the Islamic Republic to go on a manhunt and to figure out who's actually being flexible with the United States, and that's another perspective, right?
Is in charge here in terms of not only the negotiating table, but also the U.S. military posture across the region. You have the excellence of the U.S. Navy on display here. And the president even talked about how just 2 weeks ago there was that vessel that tried to break through the U.S. blockade. And ultimately, American forces fired into the engine room after giving the vessel 4 separate warnings. And it stopped that vessel in its tracks. And this is a display of what will happen if the Iranians try to test the U.S. blockade. So far, it's been quite successful in stopping these vessels, specifically from Iranian ports. Remember, this is very important to note here. The United
Wow.
States is not trying to stop.
Look at all that military. Holy crap. Look at everything we have in here. Oh my God. And this doesn't even include the USS Boxer, which I don't even know if it's moving towards this area or not.
Any sort of merchant vessels who are going through the Strait of Hormuz. They're actually trying to help these vessels make their way through this area despite the Iranian threats. It's the vessels that are coming from Iranian ports that are being stopped. And we're talking about a lot of oil that is currently in the Persian Gulf that now the United States has control over when and where it moves. And the president talked about this as well. The Iranians tried to put pressure on the United States and the military in the region, and their plan backfired. And ultimately, that led to President Trump controlling the Strait of Hormuz. And that is what we are seeing right now. Iranian ports are totally stopped at this moment. They cannot move vessels out through the Strait of Hormuz due to the U.S. Navy blockade. And the president now is issuing this new warning to the Iranian regime if they try to escalate in the Persian Gulf.
Oh my God, he says the Persian Gulf. Thank you. Instead of just calling it the Gulf. Thank you. Thank you. One more time.
Escalate in the Persian Gulf.
Good job. Good job. Good job. One last thing before I get to you guys. Hold on. Let's go here. All right. So Mark Levin posted this. This is important. So this is based on this article from Israel Hayom. So look at this. According to the sources, Iran is proposing a complete freeze on uranium enrichment activity for a period of 15 years. So this is very significant if true. Obviously, this is not going to should not be accepted by the Americans because it's a sunset clause, just like the JCPOA, just like the Obama deal. No, thank you. We should basically say forever, right? That would be the actual surrender. But even though that's not something that should hopefully wouldn't be and shouldn't be accepted by President Trump, it's still so far away from what was discussed, what was acceptable by the Islamic Republic in Islamabad. Because in Islamabad, they were talking 5 years. And apparently, the Americans were there's some reports that, you know, not President Trump, but the negotiating team on the American side was saying 20 years. I don't, it's hard to know if that's true or not. But the Islamic Republic, after a statement coming out from Mushtaba saying that the uranium enrichment shouldn't even be discussed, has now gone from 5 years to 15 years, which shows that we were right that the United States has the upper hand. Why would they go from 5 years to 15 years unless they're hurting more than because everybody? Some people might be sometimes skeptical. Do we really have leverage? Who is really winning here? And if in the negotiation table, on the negotiation table, you're moving towards more the American side, that means the Americans have the leverage because we're not moving closer to the Islamic Republic side, we're moving closer to the American side, even though this should not be accepted, right? And by the way, this was not the only change compared to what they offered in Islamabad because it continues saying after that period ends, it would be permitted to resume enriching uranium at a low civilian grade level of 3.6%. Again, this should never be accepted. Hell no. But still, the fact that the Islamic Republic is saying this goes against everything else that they're saying publicly, which is a lot more. So we have basically three different positions: the positions that Americans would accept, which doesn't even get close to; the positions that the Islamic Republic says that they would be willing to be flexible about. And then this position that they're putting out there, which is far away from both of those positions. What you have to notice is that this new position of the this new offer of the Islamic Republic is not just so far away from what the Americans would accept. It's also very far away from what the Islamic Republic publicly says that they will be willing to do. And this is a position that is the official statement that is being claimed to be from Mustafa Khamenei has banned all of this, even talking about this, right? And by the way, guys, don't think like I will trust. And one reason why the Americans shouldn't ever accept this is because obviously, if you agree to this, then the Islamic Republic is just going to wait for the next president and then throw all of this out the window, obviously, right? Basically, but it will still be extremely humiliating to the Islamic Republic to sign such a deal to the regime supporters. They would be like, "What the hell? Why would you even talk about this?" Right? So, civilian grade level of 3.6% under a principle of zero. So that's not just it. 15 years instead of 5. Low grade, only 3.6% only. But even and on top of that, this is so far away from what they said in Islamabad. So under the principle of zero stockpiling, they added that as well, meaning no enriched uranium inventory. If this is true, then President Trump is right when when he's saying, yeah, the people we're talking to are very different from what you hear in the like what they publicly put out there. So this guy says, Jason says, if this is true, Iran's position is softening. Only a few weeks ago, Iran was offering only a complete freeze of uranium enrichment activity for 5 years. The blockade is working. Keep the pressure on. But then, okay, but Mark Levin made a great point here by saying, if this is true, it's another Iran head fake, like all the others, buying time, surviving, knowing no future president will enforce the terms, and lying and cheating all the way. It'll get help from China, Russia, and North Korea. Politically, the administration will be accused of making an Obama type deal. Yes, because it would be an Obama type deal with all of the with the sunset clause, right? So let me go back to you guys and then stop sharing this one. Okay. Oh wait.
Okay, so
Wait, hold on.
Alice is
Wait,
first on the
wait, wait,
response
wait.
list. Oh,
Let me share. All right, you guys are back. All right. Ali is first on the responses. Let's go to Ali.
Hi. Yeah, if that's true, I think.
Ali.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. If true, I think that's just Iran like saying whatever it is they need to say to survive, like you said. If not true, that it could be smart from the US's side to make it to seed more kind of chaos among the Islamic Republic, right? To make it seem like they're willing to compromise too much to the Americans, and that might not be good. As far as the Strait, I would lean towards your second guess that, what was it, that Trump wants to resume combat and it's just like a ploy to make it seem like it's a defensive action when all along I think he just wants to go in there. I think Trump loves to make a good deal. Let's not kid ourselves. He's a deal maker, but I think in this case he knows he needs to make the Dirkas go boom. I think that's what's going to happen. He can't say he's aiming for regime change because it's not a popular thought in America, but I think hopefully that's what he wants to do, and that's what he's positioning his actions as. I had a question though in response to that first tweet. I thought it was noteworthy that he was kind of calling on South Korea to maybe join the fight. And I was just wondering, would a country like South Korea be eager to show off their combat skills? We've seen North Korea do their thing in Ukraine, and that didn't really look so great. And as Sketch mentioned the other day, we've seen Chinese weapons fail in international conflicts over the years, right? Some of these proxy wars are opportunities to show off your skills or weapons or infantry or what have you. Does South Korea have only something to lose by joining a fight in a war that, at least on the surface, has little to do with them?
So when it comes to South Korea, I'll let Jeffrey respond to how likely it is for them to get involved, and I could also do some research while he's doing that to see what other people think. But when it comes to you saying that it's more likely the second option, that President Trump wanted to go back to military operation and this is a trap. One interesting thing to think about is would it even make a difference? Because even if it is, the consequences are basically the same. So if President Trump, even if President Trump prefers a way out of this without military operations, at the end of the day, the Islamic Republic, whether this is a bait or not, the Islamic Republic is going to, parts of the Islamic Republic is going to attack it, right? And then it would be ridiculous if Americans don't respond. So we're going to, it might be that the military operations are going to happen. This is already a military operation. I'm just saying a head to head confrontation back attacking the Islamic Republic on Iranian soil might be unavoidable, regardless of what the plan is, right? But I'll let Jeffrey respond to this. To the,
all very good observations. So, going to bounce off some of them. You're almost there's a very high degree of probability that you're accurate in the sense that regardless of what the I don't even want to call them surveillance. Let's just say the soft power element of regime remnants say that there are other elements within the regime remnants that are going to carry out attacks independent of what leadership says. And that is very much indicative of or exemplary of a lack of positive control the regime remnants have over their forces, in part caused by our formative capacitive strike. The formative capacitive strike was needed to reduce or undermine or stop the Mullah regime's ability to carry out the mass launch they were getting ready to do against Israel, U.S. bases, our Gulf's allies, etc. That's just what we had to do. As far as, and that was caused by all these fucked up decisions by administrations prior to President Trump, from Clinton and the failed policy of political engagement towards the mullahs via the NPT that the mullahs violated, to Obama's stupid shit, to Biden, to we can go over that forever. As far as accepting the deal, again, you're very much accurate. They're either going to lie and cheat because the regime is a dishonest and hostile state actor whose underlying motives are pseudo-theological in nature, meaning that they're very inelastic. And that's why Nari was very correct to say what she said is if they exist in any form, they will pursue there is the highest degree of probability they will pursue nuclear weapons or weapons of mass destruction in support of their broader goal of creating a conflict to bring in the Mahdi and all the rest of it. As far as what Sketch said, he's very much accurate on that. They don't need to enrich. So even if they say, oh, they're not going to enrich anymore, and they, being the regime remnants, hold true to it, they don't need to enrich because they can get whole turnkey systems from patron states like the Chinese Communist Party, Putin, North Korea, or elements out of Pakistan. Many of them have said things like they would provide turnkey systems to the Mullah regime outright. And as far as the forces around the regime remnants, Hila, I'm very proud of you, because it's not just the ships, which it's very dramatic, all the ships there, and believe me, that's a lot of naval power. The amount of force projection that is in the region vis-a-vis U.S. heavy aircraft and bombers makes what the Navy can do look like a day at Disneyland. Heavy bombers can put a lot more steel on target in a given amount of time, particularly why B-1Bs have been training and all the rest of it. You're talking about, oh my God, like one B-1B with, say, 500-pound GPS-guided bombs, if it's fully loaded, can service between 160 to 200 aim points all at once. That's for a lot less money, and we got shitloads of those, and B-52s and B-2s, and the amount of strike power that all of them could put together is about a little under 10,000 aim points. Ouch. That's all. That's 20 times what 3 carriers can put up in the air. So Hila's right. It's not just the ships, which is formidable. It's the heavy aircraft that are getting ready to do what they're going to do. And if they do, say, Operation Hormuz's Hammer, as it was envisioned, yeah, every fast attack boat, so the fast attack boats, the strikes that were done were defensive in nature, and I can only surmise Now, how do I say this? There's a good probability that the more kinetically inclined elements of the regime remnants attack on unarmed boats in the strait is just giving nothing more than more oomph to those who advocate for mass strikes against the regime, in which case if they do that against the elements in the Hormuz Strait, they're going to get obliterated in 15 minutes. Donald's not happy. Pete's not a guy you want to fuck with.
With regards to the uh, South Korea getting involved, so here's the information that I have. So, as of May 2026, President Trump is directly urging Seoul to join the U.S. naval mission, Project Freedom, in the Strait of Hormuz, especially after a South Korean cargo ship recently suffered an explosion. While South Korea relies on the strait for 70% of its oil imports, the government is treading carefully. An analyst expects South Korea to avoid rushing into the conflict, likely waiting to see how Japan responds so they can balance their U.S. alliance with the severe economic and political risks back at home. And then I have here, so despite President Trump's request for allied troops deployments, Seoul is maintaining a cautious stance to avoid weakening its own defense against North Korea. So this one, because of 70%, I already mentioned that was already mentioned. The government is focused on maritime security and logistical support rather than active combat. Um, but the Trump administration is pushing for strategic flexibility, including the potential relocation of Patriot missile system from the Korean Peninsula to the Middle East, which remains a point of high-level negotiation. By the way, this is difficult for Japan and South Korea because they want to they want to keep their forces home, especially because of North Korea and China. But at the same time, if United States is not happy with them, at some point United States might move their forces away, just like what they're doing with Germany right now. So they're like, damn, we might actually need to keep United States happy, or else US will move some of their forces from our area to some other places, and we're going to be more defenseless here against China and North Korea.
Yeah, I was going to add that maybe that's a subtle question to them or an opportunity that he's presenting them with. Hey, you see what's going on with Germany and Europe
Yeah,
here.
yeah.
Hey, South Korea, maybe you want to join because the Europeans are being a bunch of pussies. So do you
Yeah.
want to see what's up? I can move those 5,000 soldiers from Germany over
Yeah.
to East Asia if you'd like, but you scratch my back, I scratch yours, maybe something like
Yeah,
that.
I could move my defense systems away from your area as well. Yeah, I don't think they're gonna do that though, because here's the thing: it might be like I don't know how legitimate of a threat that is, because President Trump moving forces out of Europe is very in line with his idea that Russia is Europe's problem, right? But I don't know if he thinks about the same thing about China. He might actually, because President Trump sees China more as a economic adversary rather than a military one. But still, it's much bigger. China is a much bigger deal to the United States than Russia is. But it is in line with the Dunro Doctrine. Maybe President Trump just give me excuses to just focus on my own hemisphere, right? Why not? So we'll see if it's a bluff, if it's not a bluff, but it seems like we're moving in that direction. Yeah. All right, let's see who else wanted to respond.
Wait, Jeffrey, did you want to say anything else about South Korea? Can I move on?
So, yeah, real quick, South Korea has a very capable military, particularly if you're talking about their standing army, because one of the ways you can think about them is into two buckets, at least from land force perspective. I know there's sea forces and all I'm saying, like, or naval forces. You have Katyushas and you have ROC. So regular army ROC are like long-term professional soldiers, and then you have Katyushas, which are like conscripts that everybody has to serve for 2 years. So, in no insignificant manner, like South Korean ROC soldiers are ungodly tough, very trained, very capable. South Korea also has a very robust national defense industrial base. So, oddly, projecting force outside the peninsula, That's a little different with regards to Navy. They have some ships. It's not like they can match us. That said, you're not wrong. Donald wants to see people pull their weight. So, want to help us? Great. We'll move our stuff from Germany to Poland, who did help us.
Sketch.
Yes, you have to realize a priority of your problems. Is your problem that North Korea and China are about to attack Korea, or is your problem that you get 70% of your oil from a block strait? Now, if I'm an intelligent person, I'm going to say without 70%, which is a big chunk of the oil that I need to operate, right? I could collapse. I could have very serious problem. And I'm sure if you look at the Korean news, they're talking about very serious problems. They're very seriously problem. Very serious problem right now is that oil. It's not China or North Korea attacking right now. So they are being emotional about keeping that Patriot system there. They're not being logical. If they were logical, they'd say, yes, please go help me. Take that Patriot system and make sure I get my oil. All right. Or take that Patriot system, but send some tankers from California if they were pragmatic instead of emotional, because it's like they have an emotional patriot system. I don't think in the middle of all this that North Korea is going to attack South Korea. That would be suicide, or China is going to get in the middle of all this, right? So I think North Korea needs to start thinking about this more clearly. And I don't know how, because South Korea also has a very divided, kind of like we do in America, very divided politics. They have their right and their left, and you got to see who you're getting your news from because they're going to put bias into it, right? So that's very important to look at. As far as the strait itself, like I said yesterday, this is going to turn into a military operation. This isn't going to be like let's normalize trade, let's open a little route. That's not going to happen. This is going to turn military. I knew this was going to happen, and it's happening. This also, they clearly kept saying Project Freedom. That's a different project with different goals and different timetables. They would still need to get that 440 kilos, which is the only thing that changed because they've been chanting death to America forever. What changed? We have actionable intel on 440 kilos of uranium. I think what was going on is they were saying, hey, can we collaborate with the IRGC to get boats out? If we can't, whoever was saying they are in charge are not in charge because they couldn't get the military to cooperate. If we can't get the military to cooperate on this, maybe we can get them to cooperate on leaving us the hell alone while we get those kilos of uranium out. So it could be like a feeler to see for military cooperation and who's actually in charge. Another thing is if you can get them to, like right now, if they start targeting heads, whoever starts snitching and saying, "Hey, look, just I'm going to start talking. Just get me somewhere to live in Russia when this is all over." And the revolution, maybe they'll forgive me if I'm the one that knocks out all the heads that need to get knocked down. Maybe Iran will forgive me, even though I'm a piece of shit. For not forgive me, but forget me. If I'm a piece of shit and I snitch out all the other IRGC and I start giving actionable intel on where these people are, they're gonna. You know what might happen? They start taking meetings from afar, not telling each other where they are because they start being afraid of, okay, so who said we could coordinate on a military operation in the strait? Because that's what if you look at the framing, he said we are thanking our partners, our US military, for this coordination, this humanitarian mission. So who was he talking to in Iran that okayed this humanitarian mission? You got to look at the, it's not, oh, he means the Iranian people. The Iranian people have no way of coordinating a humanitarian aid mission to take boats out. He's not talking about that. If you look at the context of the message, he's talking about we are coordinating with someone in the IRGC who is going to help us get these boats out. Whoever that is, they failed. So they're not actually in charge. They're asking themselves, who told him we're going to do that? And they can have their own little problem. I hope one of them starts snitching out the others and looking for a ticket to Russia, saying this is untenable. But that's basically me just getting all my thoughts out in the open.
So, just two things. When it comes to South Korea and Japan and threats of China attacking and North Korea attacking, I think it helps if we don't look at it as a binary, right? So, yeah, it's very unlikely for any attacks to happen, but it's not about whether it happens or not. It's about the likelihood going from, I don't know, 1% to 2%. Okay. Because that, or to 3%, right? Because when it comes to commerce and trades and stock markets, that matters. So the chances could still be very low, but if a country is defenseless, that demonstrates lack of certainty and increases risks. Because here's the question: if the chances are so low, then why do they have even like a defense system there? Like, why is it wasting time there, right? Why even have an army then, right? If the chances like, why is the United States have so many bases there? Move, if they're not going to attack, just move all of that out there. So there is a risk, and obviously the risk will be too high if everything moved out from there. Would that, and not obviously the risk would be close to I don't know, maybe 100% if they had zero army. But obviously that's not going to happen. But if you remove some of the defense, obviously that risk will increase. It will not increase to high likelihood, but it will be more likely than what it was just before you had the, I don't know, Patriot system there. And because it's more likely now, that will demonstrates that would affect the markets. That will affect the price of everything. Every single person that is doing the valuation of every project or every company, the discounted rate where they try to value the present value of the cash flow coming from any other project or
Wouldn't losing
any company.
70% of the
Hold,
oil affect
hold,
the market?
hold on. Guys, please do not interrupt each other when we're talking, okay? That's not really, that's not how we want to do things here, okay? So yeah, I lost my chain of thought. What was I saying? So yes, obviously that will have an effect, but that's not my point. My point is that this will have an effect. Me saying this will have an effect does not negate that having an effect. Obviously, like, how am I'm not even speaking to that. I'm not even denying that, right? But I'm just saying that we cannot dismiss the impact of reducing the defense for countries like Japan and South Korea, even if it doesn't mean that China and North Korea will attack. The increase in likelihood will obviously have an impact on everything. So if something has a bigger impact, that does not negate what I'm saying right now, right? Another thing regarding the Islamic Republic is that, again, the reminder, the major challenge when it comes to the Islamic Republic is that even if you have a major section of IRGC trying their best to cooperate with the Americans, it takes a very small amount of the IRGC to not want to do that for this not to work. And this is right now the problem, right? So this is why the only real solution is complete regime change, because you will never be able to get cooperation from the Islamic Republic, even if they wanted to cooperate, because there will still be some people with arms that will be like, you might not shoot at the ships, but we might. And one thing else that people have to realize, that even if you stop the speedboats, the Islamic Republic might want to shoot drones at the ships from the center of Iran, like from very far away. And true, probably not that many of them will hit. But again, for commercial ships, the fact that drones are coming at ships is still, yep, no, we don't want to try that. So the only way that you could get this resolved, if you have a country where either it's armed forces with armed forces that are actively participating in attacking those elements, those armed forces that are causing insecurity for the ships. So you need to have the IRGC actually attacking the IRGC to be able to resolve this, right? Unless somehow you manage to get everybody fall in line and follow a central commander, which right now doesn't look likely. But if that happens, that's the end of the Islamic Republic. If we have IRGC versus IRGC military operations, right? But the best way to get that type of military operation is to just have a new regime, and that new regime, that new government, that new democratic government will have no problem dedicating its army to go and attack whatever is remaining of the Islamic Republic. Anyways, now I'm done. If we want to add something.
Okay, Ali's next to respond.
All right. I think going back to the Strait, I think it's a choking strategy to close in and take agency away from the IRGC. And if the ability to drop mines and missiles into the Strait is taken away from them because we're physically closer and it takes us less time to destroy the missile launchers and boats, then I think this is what we're closing down on, because the whole strategy over the past 3 weeks of the blockade has been to choke. So I imagine we're still adopting this strategy of building upon that.
Wait, say that again. Sorry, I
Um,
was sending it. I was apologizing to Sketch for being upset with him for interrupting me. I was typing that. So say that again.
No worries. You know how the past 3 weeks we've been blockading and we've been choking them? It's just a choking strategy
Yes.
to close in. I think
Yes.
this Operation Freedom is another addition on top of that. The closer we get to the strait and the closer we're able to deploy our assets, not the actual carriers and the boats, but the closer we are able to, we're able to destroy their missile launchers, the speedboats faster. Because keep in mind, if they launch a missile, it takes them less than 2 minutes to hit a ship. And you want to also be able to destroy the missile launchers or boats in about 2 minutes as well. So, yeah, the closer we are, the better it is.
Yeah, don't you think this is really difficult? The next 48 hours is going to be very important to see if these ships can be defended, right? Because I imagine it doesn't take that much to threaten these ships. So President Trump is promising something that now the whole world is watching to see if it's deliverable or not, this promise to secure the ships, and the consequences of not being able to follow on this promise. Because remember, President Trump, like when he announced Operation Project Freedom, he promised that America is going to come and secure the ships going through. And the consequences of that failing is huge, not just when it comes to what's happening around the Persian Gulf, but globally. Because you know who's watching this? China is watching this. And China is going to see if they at some point want to stop trade around the Malacca Strait, for example. How effective of the strategy is that? And if United States cannot reopen the Strait of Hormuz, that means China would easily also one day be able to close the Strait of Malacca, and then United States would not be able to do much about it because it's actually much easier to close the strait rather than opening a strait. So the next 48 hours is going to be and have huge consequences for the history of the entire globe, and the Islamic Republic either demonstrating or failing to show that this is a very effective strategy against the world superpower. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I'm actually going to cover that. I put a 1, and I think I'm next to talk. So if you want, I could just do that.
Okay, no, let's wait for you to cover that when you open that. Yeah.
Okay, in that case, Sean is next to respond.
Oh, shoot. Uber order came. I'm trying to prepare lunch. I totally lost my thought. Go ahead and go to the next person.
Okay, then the next person is Sketch.
Yeah, you should never apologize for standing by your rules. It was I that my passions got the best of me. Like all I was saying is, look, you got to look at the dangers of your economy going down as much as the dangers of your military. I framed it that way, but your point stands. The probability increases there. I'm just saying we also should focus that there is a lot of economic peril in a lot of nations, not just South Korea. There's also Philippines, Thailand, a whole lot of nations that kind of have a somewhat alliance with the U.S. around that area that are probably saying, "Hey, we should really help these guys because we need that oil." That's what I was getting to, but it was my bad, not your bad.
Okay, it's okay. And just really quickly, is it my turn? Yeah, thank you, Sketch. I really appreciate you being open to criticism. I love that. And now to actually, I don't know if you guys want to hear this or not, but this is some really crazy news that I forgot to mention. Because how many of you heard that the Islamic Republic is actually using suicide dolphins now? Did you guys hear this? So let me actually show this to you guys if it loads.
Ships have them go dark and still deliver that oil to China. There's a physical blockade. They literally cannot do that right now.
This is a physical blockade. They're not able to send their oil and the resources to China, and a vast majority of their oil exports were going via sea. To give you a sign of the desperate measures they're contemplating, The Wall Street Journal reported today that they're contemplating measures like suicide dolphins, dolphins equipped with mines to try to go after U.S. ships. So that's not a measure which projects real strength.
Wait, I'm sorry. You have to. How would that even work?
So this has been discussed in the past by the Iranian regime that
they want to strap bombs to dolphins.
To dolphins with mines to go after U.S. ships. Now, that's a pretty crazy asymmetric tool, but this is some of the measures that are being reported right now.
Do you think that they could actually try? If they actually tried that, what would?
Yeah, actually, that is an effective strategy, unfortunately, because dolphins can be very effectively trained to go into specific targets.
That say about their desperation?
This is something that they've thrown out in the past to show the various options they have at their disposal. But again, this is not a show of a country which is strong. You don't contemplate those kinds of measures when you're strong.
Okay, let me go back to you guys and then. Okay. All right, that worked effectively. Okay, so I see Jeffrey wanted to respond to.
Yeah,
and that's good.
So as crazy as that sounds, and it definitely projects desperation, tragically, zoologic warfare is nothing new. From ancient Rome to the Soviet era of the Second World War to the Soviet era of the Cold War to today. Ancient Rome used to use the flaming pig. So they'd lather pig up with oil and then light them on fire and send them into opposing ranks to cause all kinds of chaos prior to them hitting them. The Nazis, was it Nazis? No, maybe it was Soviets, trained dogs with anti-tank mines to try and crawl underneath the tank. The only thing is they trained them on their own tanks, so the dog actually blew up their own tanks. There's Soviet era, Cold War, similar things like dolphins. And now what you have here. Actually, one of the things to undermine or delay Putin's criminalized counterintelligence state's invasion into Ukraine by me and some other guys was to introduce a invasive species like shovel crabs into the estuaries to make the riverbanks unstable and make it harder, ideally, to build bridges to then support tank assaults. This is nothing. The idea, I guess my point is, the idea of zoologic warfare, the bat bomb from World War II, is tragically nothing new. It very much, in this case, though, I would contend, it demonstrates two things. One, the regime remnants' desperation to look for asymmetric counters by putting bombs on dolphins. And it's a shitty thing to put bombs on dolphins anyway. I don't know. It just kind of another example of just how douchey of people they really are.
The idea of a dolphin blowing up saddens me a lot. I don't know. But yeah, okay. Sketch?
All right, so I posted a couple of links in here. One is this about how this is from military.com. This is not just, I think I heard the voices in my head.com. This is from military.com about how dolphins protect almost a quarter of the U.S. nuclear stockpile. And I also have some tweets here from Mike Benz, who is a person that is known for going through military reports and Freedom of Information Act reports. And it is about our ventures into using dolphins. Apparently, there was a lot of cocaine involved. And he is convinced that dolphins are going extinct.
As a reward to the dolphins for a job well done? Cocaine?
I mean, you could make a cokehead do a lot.
No, I
can't. Dolphins also have a very, I would say, pronounced pleasure drives.
Wait, I was joking. I thought you mean a busting like cocaine trade.
They are not joking. They were not joking. This is actually.
They're giving cocaine to the dolphins?
Yes,
that's what you mean.
We're not blowing them up, but
I said that because I thought it would be funny. I didn't think that you actually mean that they're giving cocaine to the dolphins.
I want you to see the link. You don't have to believe me. Please never believe me. All I tell you is for you to check, right? But this guy is very reputable. As I'm going to put his whole Twitter here for you, right? And he is going on a tear about cocaine dolphins and the CIA. And we use them for spying. We use them for a lot of things. They just blow them up. They're not even that creative. But dolphins are also known to have a very pronounced pleasure drive. They let me see how I can put this. They have infatuations with their trainers that cross to the level of the 72 goat levels. The dolphins really sometimes they like the humans. And dolphins, I think their brains are a little more developed that we give them credit for. And you know, a developed brain can, figure out, I want to seek pleasure. And apparently they've been using cocaine. And that makes me think it's real, even if it's not effective. It is desperate. The CIA has done a lot of desperate things. They're famous for it. The good things, bad things, but desperate things. But I put the links in because I know it sounds crazy, but it also sounds incredibly entertaining. And as soon as this is over, I'm going to look into this too. Because I saw this morning and I was like, Mike Benz is not just going to tell me some things that didn't happen. And I'm looking through the reports and it's looking highly likely that not only us, but a lot of nations are using dolphins. I don't know if they give them cocaine. I don't know how much cocaine they have in Iran. I think it's hard to locally produce. They might given them other things. But
I'm having a hard time believing that they give the cocaine to dolphins as rewards in the
we
military.
find out. I'll write up a report on it later. But it's we have done worse.
Yeah, and you're saying also they're giving they're making sexual favors to dolphins as rewards.
No.
I thought the
Dolphins
trainers
just
were
do
also
that on their
offering
own.
sex. I thought the trainers were offering sex services to the dolphins as a way to get them to do things. No, okay.
Some of them have, but they're just pervert trainers. It's not like a normal thing in the military side of things. It's just a fact that's known to happen with dolphins being a little pervert. If you look up dolphin perverts, you're gonna get so many pages of these things that happen. It's a little. I don't want to. We're going off track. We're going off the rails. I want to get back on the rails. So I'm gonna shut up.
All right.
Can I say something scientifically, a small piece of information? There is a lot of fish and mammals in the ocean that has found tracks of drugs. They think it's because of drug boats that are sinking into the ocean, and this is why a lot of sea animals have particles of drugs inside of them. Just
Okay, but next time put a 2 in the chat, okay? We will allow it this time. All right, and then let's move on. Okay, Jeffrey, very short. I saw you put a 2, but we want to go to the next comment, but really short.
Yeah, so Sketch is not wrong. Narcotics were used, and it wasn't the CIA. He was a little off on that. It was NASA that was studying that, and the person's name was Margaret Hugh Lovett. And dolphins, particularly bottlenose dolphins, are the most sexually aggressive animal on the planet, and they pretty much rape everything, including other dolphins and dead people and everything else. So when you watch Flipper, maybe it wasn't that he was trying to protect the kid. Maybe he was just offering the kid candy.
Be careful, guys, because if we keep going this way, people are going to think maybe it's okay to use them as suicide bombers if they're this evil, okay? But no, don't. Yeah, anyways. All right, let's continue. I still, by the way, don't believe that the United States government is rewarding dolphins with cocaine, but we'll see. All right,